Hello and welcome to the Self-Worth Whispers podcast. This is Beth, your host. Are you ready to be the absolute best version of yourself? Are you ready to tear away your self-doubt? Are you ready to finally break through the walls that have been separating you from your happy, healthier life? If so, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get settled in, grab some tissues, and get ready for some tears, laughter, and breakthroughs. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Self-Worth Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Beth Douglas. I'm a life coach, a personal trainer, nutritionist, dedicated to helping you live happier and healthier lives through personal growth and transformation. Today, we're diving into a powerful and often difficult topic: how the bad things that happen to us, the trauma we experience in life, can actually make us stronger when we finally have the courage to work through them and heal. Now, trauma can be overwhelming and isolating, but through healing, it can be a source of incredible strength. In this episode, we'll discuss what trauma is, how it impacts us, and why working through it leads to resilience, self-awareness, and empowerment. Stick with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll see that your pain can become the foundation of your greatest power. What is trauma and how does it impact us? Let's start by defining trauma. Trauma comes in many forms, whether it's childhood experiences, losses, abuse, a tragic event, or it even can be a series of smaller chronic stressors that accumulate over time. Trauma isn't just about the event itself, but how we process it and how it affects us emotionally, mentally, and even physically. When we experience trauma, it can distort our view of the world. It can cause us to doubt ourselves and lead us to unhealthy coping mechanisms. It creates deep wounds that, if left unaddressed, can resurface from such as forms of anxiety, depression, and negative behaviors, maybe even something like self-sabotage. I mentioned in episode 1 how trauma sticks with us when it's unresolved. It can embed itself deeply in our nervous system, affecting not only our minds, but our body as well. And when we experience trauma, our brain and our body often remain in a heightened state of alert, preparing for the danger. Even long after the threat has passed, our body is still prepared for it to come back. This chronic stress can settle into our muscles, our bones, and our heart, creating tension, pain, or even fatigue. Everyday sensations like sound, smell, taste, these triggers bring the past back into the present as the body remembers the trauma, keeping us in a cycle of stress and fear until we start to process and heal from the underlying pain. Now, this does not only cause us to stay stuck in our minds, but it affects our physical health as well. The number one key point about today's episode that I want you to understand is that trauma does not define us. It's something that happened to us. It's not who we are. Trauma may shape parts of us, but it doesn't define who we are or limit who we can become. We all have the ability to grow, heal, and move forward no matter what we've been through. Our past does not dictate our future. Our past is just a chapter. It's not the whole story. When we find the courage to finally face our trauma, we unlock a path towards incredible growth. Why don't we face trauma head on? Well, for many of us, the idea of confronting pain is terrifying. It's like looking into a deep abyss, afraid that if we dive in, we might never come out. The mind creates a powerful defense mechanism: denial, avoidance, even minimizing the event to protect us from reliving the pain. But avoiding trauma is like covering a wound with a band-aid without cleaning it. All of the dirt, the grime, the bacteria stays in there, and over time it festers. It impacts our relationships, our goals, our sense of self-worth, and many other things in our lives. This is why many of us find ourselves stuck in cycles of negativity or patterns that we just can't break. However, when we build up the courage to face what happened to us, to dig deep in the understanding of how those experiences have shaped our thoughts and behaviors, that's when true healing begins. So, let me tell you a story about how healing my trauma felt for me. Because for many, many years, I avoided healing my trauma. And I think this analogy and this story can inspire you, but also not mislead you to the fact that it's going to be easy. Okay, so this is how I envision my healing. For many years, I would stand at the edge of a vast swamp. And on the other side of the swamp, I could see all of the things that I knew deep in my heart that I was capable of. All of the things I wanted in my life were on the other side of the swamp, and I could see it. But I was too scared to go across the swamp until finally one day you're standing at the edge of this vast swamp, just staring across the other side where everything you ever wanted waits for you. Happiness, fulfillment, peace, success, it's all there just waiting for you. But between you and that life stretches a thick, murky swamp. Air smells of damp earth and decay, and the ground beneath your feet feels soft and uncertain. You know that you want to reach your dreams and you want that life. You have to cross the swamp in order to get there. So you finally decide that now is the time. You take a deep breath and you take your first step. And you think to yourself, this isn't so bad. The mud is squishing under your feet, but you move forward, finding your footing. Each step feels manageable, filling you with hope. Maybe this won't be as hard as it looks. But as you push further into the swamp towards the center, the closer you get to the center, the ground beneath you becomes softer and more difficult. Your feet start sinking deeper into the muck with every step, and your progress slows. The mud is grabbing your legs, it's heavy and cold, and you start to wonder if you can even make it through. You don't know how deep it goes or what lies beneath, but you can't see any other way forward. Your legs burn with the effort of pulling yourself free from the muck. But you keep going because you can still see that life that you want on the other side. And it looks so bright and welcoming. At the very center of the swamp, doubt grips you. Maybe you're thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I bringing this up? Why can't I just let it be and let it go? And the weight of the journey feels unbearable, like you're never going to break free of the sludge. But then you look back and you realize how far you have come. You're in the center of the swamp. It would take the same energy to turn around as it would to move forward. This is a pivotal point, and this is where I want you to be. Because at this point in this swamp, you realize that half the work is done. And yes, it was hard, but the other half will be easier. And that's when you decide that you're gonna go for it and you're gonna move through it. So, with the final surge of effort, you push through the center. Slowly, the mud loosens its hold on your legs. The ground begins to firm beneath you, and every step becomes lighter, easier. You look up, and the other side of the swamp is closer than ever. With each step, your pace quickens, your strength returns, and you feel lighter. Finally, you reach the solid ground on the other side. The air here is warm and fresh, filled with light and possibilities. You've made it. The swamp is behind you, and before you is the life you've always dreamed of, a life filled with happiness, fulfillment, health, and joy. You smile knowing the struggle was worth it, and you move forward into this life that you have been waiting for such a long time. It's a happy ending. I know, but what's the most amazing thing about this ending is that you have made it through the biggest swamp of your life. And there will be other swamps, but you know what? Now you know you can pass them. And this is building your resilience. It builds your strength. It builds your self-worth by taking those hard steps and getting to the other side of the swamp. Guys, healing is not easy, but it is worth the work. Stepping through the swamp becomes easier the stronger you become. And stepping through the swamp makes you stronger. Now, let's get to the core of today's discussion. I want to talk about the strength we gain from facing and healing trauma. Number one, resilience. We gain resilience in the healing process. Every time we confront our pain and process it, we're building emotional resilience. Life is full of challenges, and trauma can make us feel like life is too overwhelming. But by healing, we get better at dealing with future difficulties. We're less likely to be knocked down by every bump in the road because we've learned how to stand tall after being broken. Before healing, I myself would start so many things, and as soon as they became challenging, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a business idea, or a position that I really wanted, when it became hard, I didn't feel like I was strong enough to step through it. Through the healing, I learned that I can work through the hard things and become stronger while doing it. And because of this, I've been able to accomplish so much more with my life. Another thing that we learn as we go through healing is self-awareness. When we go through the healing process, we learn a lot about ourselves. We uncover limiting beliefs that we didn't even realize were holding us back. We might find out that our constant people pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination, or fear of failure all stem from unresolved trauma. This self-awareness gives us the power to break free from these patterns and become the person we were truly meant to be. We also grow our mindset. Working through trauma fosters a mindset shift. This is so huge and so profound in my healing. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims of our circumstances, we start to see ourselves as survivors and warriors. We recognize that while we couldn't control what was happening to us, we can control how we respond, and how we grow from it. This growth mindset transforms our lives from stagnation to forward movement. Stepping out of the victim mindset and into the warrior mindset will give us our power back. When we heal from our past, we gain inner strength. When we face the darkest parts of ourselves and our past, we cultivate inner strength. It's not the kind of strength that's loud or forceful. It's a quiet, unshakable belief in ourselves. It's an understanding that no matter what life throws our way, we have already survived the worst. And this strength becomes a cornerstone of everything we do moving forward. I love how healing gave me an inner strength and belief in myself. Before healing, and don't get me wrong, I'm still healing. But before I started the process, I was scared to shine because as a child, whenever I did, it was usually followed by physical or emotional abuse. So I learned to play small and not let anyone see how amazing my light was. But through healing and understanding that I had the inner strength to shine, I've been able to help so many other people in their journey of finding their inner strength. And finally, this is a big one for me, empathy and connection. And for so many years, I was misunderstood because I would bury my trauma and pretend that I had a different life as a child. I don't want to say I purposely pretended that I didn't have the life I did, but people always assumed that I had this amazing childhood with a ton of opportunities. I remember one day somebody said to me that I can't remember what we were talking about. Maybe what are you doing this weekend? And somebody said to me, "Oh, well, I know what you're doing. Daddy's probably taking you to go skiing in the Alps this weekend." And I just didn't say anything. It actually brought in my traumatic childhood in my heart. I could feel that because I was so misunderstood that people believed that my life was something else because I was in denial. But through facing my truth, and being proud of overcoming my past, my empathy and connection is so much better. It's way more genuine. So when I was finally able to heal, and when you're able to heal your trauma, this often enhances our capacity for empathy. When we've been through pain, we can better understand others who are struggling. This opens the door to deeper, more meaningful connections. It allows us to support others on their own journey. And in doing so, we create a ripple effect of healing in the world. I feel so much of this in my life, and I have chosen to help others through their trauma. I have such a deep understanding here that my experiences and my trauma has helped me become a more empathetic and a more connected coach for others. Healing trauma can do so much for you. But what it does for all of us is it gives us a deep inner strength that transforms how we live. As we process and release old wounds, we learn to face challenges with greater resilience and courage. Pain that once weighed us down becomes a source of wisdom, teaching us how to cope with difficulties in a healthier way. This strength not only helps us handle future hardships, but it also empowers us to set boundaries, build healthier relationships, and trust ourselves more fully. By healing, we gain confidence in our abilities to overcome adversity, knowing that we've already survived and grown from our deepest pain. So, how do we start working through the trauma? I'm going to give you some suggestions here because I think it's important that we have options when it comes to healing. And I truly believe that the first step is acknowledging that there is trauma to heal from. It might seem obvious, but many of us live in denial for years, not realizing that our struggles are rooted in unresolved pain. This was 100% me, guys. So many people in my life assume that I had that amazing childhood full of opportunities. This was so far from the truth. And if you listen to episode 1, what I shared was just touching the surface of my trauma and struggles. So let's talk about how we can start the journey of healing. My number one suggestion is therapy, whether it's seeking professional help, whether that's through a therapist, a counselor, or a life coach. They can all provide a safe place to explore your trauma. They can help you process your emotions, identify triggers, and also help develop coping strategies. I myself worked with a coach to help me unpack my trauma, and I practice and still practice IFS, which stands for Internal Family Systems. It really has nothing to do with your family, but I have had huge success with IFS with myself and with clients. I can't even begin to tell you how much IFS has helped me. But if you listen to episode 1, I told you how I was abused and how one of my abusive incidents left me with two black eyes. In my first IFS session, I just want to share this with you. I was guided back to that painful memory of abuse, that moment that left me with two black eyes. It also left me with deep emotional scars. As I revisited this experience through IFS, I found myself watching it unfold in a disassociated state, detached from what was going on, but aware of the intensity and the pain and the fear that my younger self endured. In this frozen moment, because the scene freezes in IFS, you ask for this scene to be frozen. So everything just slows down. And in that time, without getting in too much details, I was able to, as myself now, my grown Beth, I was able to gently step into that memory and reach out to the younger me who was stuck in the trauma. With compassion, I was able to remove the younger Beth from the scene, rescuing her from the abuse and able to take her to a safe place and to give her what she needed in that moment that she didn't get. I was able to wrap her in love, giving her comfort and care that she desperately needed back then. It was then that I could feel her strength returning, her spirit starting to shine again, her spirit free from the darkness that had trapped her. This act of love and protection helped me heal, helped me integrate that part of myself with tenderness and allowing me to move forward with a lighter heart, a heart that was more healed. Sometimes during traumatic events, we will disassociate from our body as a survival mechanism. And it's it's a way of coping, removing ourselves physically and emotionally kind of get separated. I remember this movie I was watching as I was studying this a few years back. I was watching a movie. There was a 12-year-old boy in the car with his dad, and his dad had gotten mixed up in some kind of government scheme or something. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but the some people, bad people, were after the dad, and they finally caused the car to crash. And the boy was able to get out of the car, and the dad told him to run. And he ran a little ways, but turned back and hid behind a tree. And he could see his dad being shot over and over and over again. And he was crying and crying and crying, and it was so traumatic for him. But suddenly he stopped crying. And then, like, his face filled with what I would say at the time was survival sense. And he just did what he had to do and ran, and he stopped crying. In that moment, he disassociated with what was happening and did what he needed to do to survive. And that's a perfect example of disassociation. And so when things and sensations, emotions, and memories are too much to bear, our mind distances itself to protect it. This can leave us feeling detached as we're watching ourselves from the outside, numb or floating in a dream-like state. While this defense helps us cope in the moment, it can linger, preventing us to fully inhabitate our bodies and emotions after the trauma. So IFS can be a powerful tool in helping to heal this disconnection by working with the parts, the different inner voices or aspects of ourself that have taken on a protection role. IFS gently helps us recognize and heal these parts, holding our pain and fear. And this is important because these parts of ourselves can cause us to play it safe. In my case, I had a protective part that caused me to believe that if I shined bright, abuse would follow. Now, stay with me. This part was the self-sabotage, the perfectionist, and or the procrastinator, holding me in a pattern of self-destruct. IFS created a safe space for us to reconnect with our body and mind, allowing us to engage and understand our emotions without being overwhelmed. Through this process, we can begin to feel whole again, bringing our physical and emotional self back into harmony. Self-reflection can help us heal through trauma and can be done in several different ways. Maybe you do it by journaling, meditation, or simply taking the time to reflect on your feelings can be a powerful way to connect with your inner self. You could possibly ask yourself tough questions. How has my past experiences shaped my behavior? What emotions am I avoiding? Often, anger shows up when we are hurt. The anger is there to protect and deflect the hurt. Typically, when I ask a deeper question, maybe something like, take a deep breath and get it all the way in your belly. And I will simply ask, what about this situation makes you angry? Usually, we are able to find some emotion other than anger. Maybe it's fear or sadness. And when we are able to recognize that anger is just a cover emotion, then we can start healing maybe those feelings of abandonment, those feelings of fear, those feelings of sadness. And anger is kind of that protection layer so you don't have to feel those. If you listened to episode 1, I shared one of the things that I did was writing my younger self a letter, and I found that super healing. And I still use that letter with a photograph of me as a child when I'm feeling a little overwhelmed and not understanding why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. This letter to myself actually really helps me understand that I am my own hero and I don't need to be the victim. So, writing a letter to your younger self can help you heal from trauma by letting you connect with the part of you that was hurt or scared. It's a way to give yourself the love, the comfort, and the understanding you needed back then when you didn't get it. When you write this letter, you can say things that will help your younger self feel safe and supported, helping to heal those old wounds. By doing this, you can release the pain and the hurt from the past and find peace, knowing you've cared for that part of yourself with kindness and understanding. And then number three is to find a support system. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, whether it's a friend, family, or a support group. Having a community that understands and supports you is essential for healing. Without support, we feel alone. And if you are looking for a support group, go to the Facebook page, Self Worth Whispers, and like that page. You'll find some support there. I'm hoping to build that community with people who have healed, people that are healing, or people that are just curious about healing. I'll have that link in the transcripts. And finally, when you are in the process of healing, be patient and compassionate with yourself. Healing doesn't happen overnight. Being patient and compassionate with yourself during setbacks is key to personal growth and healing. It's important to remember that progress isn't always a straight line. Setbacks are normal and they are a big part of your journey. When they happen, instead of being hard on yourself, offer the same kindness you would give to a friend going through a tough time. Each time you repeat the steps towards healing or growth, they become a little easier. Just like practicing anything else, the more you do it, the more natural it feels. Over time, you'll find that bouncing back from setbacks happen more smoothly, and you'll build greater resilience and confidence in your ability to move forward. A small step in the right direction is still the right direction. Let me tell you a little story about a guy named Bob, because I love Bob's story. There once was a man named Bob who spent his whole life avoiding his past trauma. I'll deal with it tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow turned into next week. Next week turned into next year. And pretty soon, Bob was 60 years old, still pretending those childhood wounds were not a big deal. One day, he was on the couch watching a cooking show when the host said, "You can't bake a cake if you don't deal with your mess first." Bob suddenly sat up and thought, wait, is he talking about the cake or my life? Determined to heal, Bob finally decided to take the steps he'd been putting off for decades. He went to therapy, joined a support group, and even tried journaling. Though he spent his first sessions doodling stick figures or making circles and hearts, slowly the clouds began to lift. He noticed little things, like how the birds outside didn't sound so annoying anymore, or how traffic didn't make him want to blow up the highway. One day, Bob woke up, and instead of his usual grumble, he actually smiled for no reason. He even started dancing in the kitchen while making pancakes, like something out of a cheesy commercial. Bob realized life was much better when you're not carrying the weight of unresolved trauma. Sure, it took him 60 years to get there, but he had to admit he was finally living his best life, one pancake dance at a time. Guys, it's never too late to heal. As we wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember this. Your trauma doesn't define you. What defines you is how you rise from it. The fact that you're even thinking about healing, that you're ready to face your past, means that you've already taken a step towards incredible strength. Healing isn't linear. It's messy, it's challenging, but it's also one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself. When you transform your trauma into strength, you open the door to living a life that's not just about surviving, but now it can be about thriving. Thank you for joining me today on the Self-Worth Whispers podcast. I hope this episode has given you some insight into how working through your trauma can lead to greater strengths and resilience. Remember, healing is a journey, and each step you take, no matter how small, is a victory. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from hearing this message. And if you have any questions or want to share your own journey, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through my website. My email address is beth@eatfitlifewellness.com. All the links will be provided in the transcripts. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep healing, and remember, your strength lies within you. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode will help you become happier and healthier. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is beth@eatfitlifewellness.com. Check us out on social media and sign up for our Happier and Healthier newsletter. You will find the links and the transcripts below. Remember, you are beautiful, unique, strong, and worthy, and you are so much more. Thanks again for listening to the Self-Worth Whispers podcast, and don't forget to subscribe. I love you all.